What's going on, everybody? Cheers. Happy Wednesday, or whatever day of the week it is when you're listening to this or watching this. For those of you who are with us live, hope you had a fantastic 4th of July. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us for this week's episode of the With Her Two Hands podcast, where each week we celebrate women who build, make, and fix things with their own two hands. My name is Bogey. I am your host for this series. I am a master auto mechanic by trade, but I am passionate about celebrating and encouraging women in all of the trades, the industrial trades, hands-on skills, all of the above. Love seeing women in these non-traditional career paths and seeing the number of women in these trades increase slowly but steadily over the last several decades. Now, my guest tonight is also a auto mechanic. And so, in all of my years as a mechanic and working with female mechanics from all over the country and doing this podcast and interviewing different women, it's so awesome to see how many more women I'm seeing getting into the industry, right? There's a lot of young girls coming up in the field, and that is fantastic to see. But I can count on one, two, maybe a foot, but pretty much two hands, the number of women who I know who've really been in it for a long time at this point, because let's be honest, back in the day, there just weren't as many women getting into these fields because of all of the obstacles that there were in the way of women entering these fields. So our guest tonight is another one of those ladies who's been in the industry for a long time. So she is right there with me. She's been in the automotive industry for a long, long time. She's been a Ford technician for over a decade. And I am really excited to have her join in. I first met tonight's guest when she was involved in one of the all-female builds at my shop, Girl Gang Garage in Phoenix. And I was just immediately struck by her tenacity, her skill, her knowledge, and her just ability to just dive in and figure things out. And we became fast friends, worked together a lot on the all-female build, and have stayed in touch throughout the years. So I'm really excited to have her on as a guest tonight. But before I have her join, first got to do a big thank you to our sponsor for this episode, Drive Time. If you're not familiar with them, definitely want to go check them out. Not only are they a great company and a great place to buy a used car from, but they're a great place to get your start in the industry, whether you are interested in the body side of things, paint work, metal work, mechanical work. They do a little bit of all of it, and they have a lot of really great educational programs, especially to help younger technicians getting started and finding their home within the industry. So if you've not checked them out, go do that now. But first, without further ado, I said go check them out now. Don't check them out now. Check them out after this podcast is over. Right now, stay here and hang out with us, because I'm going to bring in tonight's guest in just a quick second. But I also really want to thank you guys for coming here each week, for hanging out with us, for meeting these awesome women. Please, if you enjoy this series, make sure you hit like, hit subscribe, leave us comments. We love hearing your feedback. If you have specific topics that you'd love to hear us discuss, we want to hear from you about those. If you are a tradeswoman or know a tradeswoman that we should be interviewing, definitely let us know that as well. And if you can take the time to review this as a podcast, the more reviews we get, the more eyes and ears get on this project. And that means that these women get celebrated all the more. And that's what the purpose of this is. So thanks so much for tuning in. And now I'm going to shut up and stop yapping, and I'm going to bring tonight's guest on. I think you guys are really going to like her. All right. Hello, lovely.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. I know you were a little hesitant at first.
Yeah. I was nervous, Very shy person, but yeah, it's fine though.
I'm so excited that you agreed to, because I think you have such a great perspective, and kind of, as I was explaining to the folks at home, there's just not that many women who have been in this industry for a long time, right? We tend to see, and I'm sure you've seen this over the years too, that while we are attracting more women to the industry, we tend to lose them after a couple of years. The challenges are just so great. But especially when you and I came into the industry, there were a lot more obstacles in the way of getting involved. And you particularly, I think you experienced a lot of those obstacles early on, and kind of what steered your direction initially. You want to tell everybody how you kind of started out and the going the auto body path and then finding your way back to
Yeah.
mechanical. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I was 19, straight out of high school, and I didn't have any sort of direction, but I had always like was interested in cars. My dad got me started on this old Mustang that I had, and um, never really looked back from that. And I didn't see any path away. And I was like, well, I really want to work on cars, but I didn't have the confidence. And I think that's been my biggest issue, obviously. But I didn't have the confidence to move forward with that path. And so I was like, well, let me just go into auto body. And auto body is great. It's just as challenging. I don't want to make other women feel like that, that have been in it, but because it's very challenging. In fact, I don't like to do it. It's just not my thing. But I
Well, can I interrupt you really quickly?
Yeah,
Why did you, if self-confidence kind of like stopped you from pursuing the mechanical path, was there something that like, obviously perception versus reality are sometimes different things. Now that body is just as challenging, as whatever. But was there something at that time that made you feel like I have enough confidence for this, but not for this other thing?
Because I'm artistically inclined, and so I believed that, and I can paint pretty well if I do it a lot. Obviously, practice and all of that, and I did a little bit of welding and stuff. Not practice at all in that, as you know. Yeah, it was one of those things that I looked at it. Actually, I looked at it in a wrong lens. I did. I thought it would be easier, and it's not. So I actually, that was a very sinful thing on my part, to look down on another part of that career path, because that's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work. But I guess the way my brain is wired, I knew that I was supposed to do something more, and that really what my brain was wired for, what I was built for, So ended up being like having jealousy, like I told you. I looked down the hall because it was in the same small building. I looked down the hall and see like these guys just wrenching away, swapping heads, doing all kinds of stuff, and I'm like, why I can't do that? And I just gave up. And I was, at the time I did, but it never really left. Yeah, which is why I'm here now.
Yeah,
so it was a long journey of just finding myself. I was really young, and I had a rough time growing up, and so I felt a lot alone. But it was like basically being alone that caused me to be able to have the confidence to. I figured out how to run. I ran a half marathon at one point. I had it. My son gave me all the confidence in the world.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then it was basically like, if I could do all of this, I can do that, and that's what led me to UTI. So,
I love it.
Yeah.
And how many years later was that?
Oh man, there's several. Yeah. It was about 7 or 8, I think.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So the program that you went to, where you were like, wistfully looking at these guys doing engines and feeling envious of them, that was also a trade program that you went into to do the auto body, or was that in a job where you were seeing that?
Yeah, that was a trade program. It was at our local community college, which the program itself was actually really good for being such a small college, and it was very affordable. I wasted it, unfortunately. It really sucks.
It's never a waste. It's never a waste, because you still learned a ton, and it's stuff that, had you grow as a person regardless, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, I painted my friend's door recently. Actually, you kind of got me back into it for a while, and I salvaged a door, and she had wrecked her car, and she's like, I don't want to take it to insurance. Just, can you do something? And I'm like, yes. So I salvaged the door and I repainted it, and it it looked great.
Look at you.
Yeah,
see, it's never a waste.
No, it's never a waste. Utilized. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So did you you worked in the field on the body side of things as well, right? Before you left that, or did you just do the program and then did you complete that program?
I did not complete the program. I did paint cars on the side though.
Okay.
I did it at my uncle's barn, like cleaned out his sheep barn.
Yeah.
This is like a whole thing, but yeah, I painted my sister's car, do some light stuff here and there, but
Nice. So I got to ask, did you have like, I know you kind of point to your self-confidence as the reason why you didn't pursue that path earlier. Was there other stuff going on? Were there other messages that you were hearing from people? Were there people in your life that were kind of reaffirming that lack of self-confidence, or do you feel like it was all internal?
Yeah. Oh, sure. What I believe is that when you have a weakness and you show it to people, a lot of times they'll capitalize on it. So uh, if you're wanting to do something and you really do have it in you, people don't like that. And I hate to be that pessimistic about it, but when people don't want others to achieve things because maybe out of in envy, jealousy, sorry.
Merging two words at once. That's okay. I do that all the time.
It's the same thing. We'll just make that a new word,
Totally. I'm game.
Envy. Yeah. So that was a lot. I mean, there were a few friends in my life. Like I had really good friends that encouraged me, and they were like, "Tasha, I need help with my car," and I guess I can try. I don't know. At the time I didn't know anything. So, yeah. So that did happen.
How was your family about it? Were they supportive? I mean, obviously you went to this other program and did the auto body route. Were they supportive of you doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
My mother told me, she said, I did not choose this path for you because I knew how hard it would be. But she said she's very glad that I did. So she
Interesting.
was extremely supportive of that. But I've been doing some genealogy lookup in my family, and apparently I'm in the long line of mechanics.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know,
Huh.
it's almost like we're built to do it.
Interesting. I am
Yeah.
not.
But you're good though.
I am not. I did not have it in my genes. It's not in my family history. I had to work hard for this.
Oh, you did though. No, I viewed you in the same way. I think you have to have your brain has to be wired, whether you're
Yeah.
male or female.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm so curious about this. So you started the program and then you ended up not doing it. Was it like what kind of drew that final line where you're like, I'm not gonna follow through and finish this program with the auto body and keep going with that? What caused
my
that?
my heart wasn't in it, and
Okay.
I was experiencing some depression at the time, but I met my husband at the time too, so there was so much going on. And
Yeah.
I think initially I was like, I felt like I was holding a space where somebody else could be succeeding. And so
Interesting.
so I left because I felt like, well, and the instructor was not happy with me at all.
With you for leaving or with you being there?
For me, like my work ethic.
Oh.
I wasn't showing up half the time,
Oh.
it was
Because
like,
your heart
yeah,
wasn't in it.
it wasn't in it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
he just called me out, and I needed it, you know,
Interesting.
I needed it. Uh,
Yeah.
Something I appreciate very much. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. So you
Yeah.
leave the program. You're not feeling confident about any of it. You know you don't want to do body work, but now you meet your husband. You have your son.
Yeah.
Did you work during that time? Were you a stay-at-home mom? Like where were you at in the process? Like did you just go find a job that like didn't fulfill you, but you did something just to keep yourself busy? What was happening at that time?
Yeah. So we got pregnant on our wedding night. So
Nothing wrong with that.
right. So it was immediately throwing us into parenthood, which was a good thing. And had the beautiful son. He's now almost 6 foot tall. He's
Oh my
like,
goodness.
oh yeah, he's 17 almost, and
I love it.
just an amazing kid. And yeah, I mean, all of that was kind of, you just get caught up in life, but I always felt like I've got to do something more. It's not that being a mom isn't fulfilling, but I just felt like I wasn't pulling my weight in life, in society, and anything. And
Interesting.
so, yeah, we were living in Minnesota at the time, and we just made the
Oh, wow.
executive decision to empty out all of our accounts and just go for it. And
wow.
we came here with no jobs. to Phoenix.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we dropped everything. Yeah.
Why Phoenix? And holy cow, what a huge transition to make and a huge risk to take. What prompted that?
I just felt a calling. It was like, well,
Yeah.
my religion, I felt God leading me this direction. And my husband had lived out here before, and he had
Okay.
brought me out here. I grew up in the Midwest. I never visited any place. Like, I was such like a Midwest girl. It was ridiculous. But yeah, when he brought me out here, I was like, oh, I love this area and I want to live here. So yeah, we've been here for 13 years now.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So did you come out here for UTI, or did you find UTI once you were out here and you came out here kind of independently of UTI?
Both. So
Okay.
we had already planned on coming out, and my husband came out and toured the facility for me.
Oh, nice.
He was, looking for jobs, and I was staying at home with my son, and that's pretty much what happened. I mean, I just took the leap.
Yeah.
I had done so much research on it, and I saw people with so much success coming out of it, and I thought, well, if people are coming out of it with the knowledge and they're able to go into it and be successful, obviously this college is doing something right.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
For those who don't know, UTI is a Universal Technical Institute, and it's a pretty large automotive training program. They have a partner school or a sister school, which is MMI, so that's the motorcycle side of things, and they're adding welding programs. They have all sorts of different programs that they have, and it's actually where I went to school as well. So Tausha and I both went to UTI. What year were you there? Do you mind me asking?
Yeah. I started in 10, and then
Okay.
Usually it's like the 1 year for the base, and then I did Ford, and then I tacked on BMW, and then
Okay.
I did the step program. I didn't do what you did.
Okay.
So you did like
I did the big step.
good
They had
one.
like the small step, the fast step program.
Fast track. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what
fast
it
track.
was.
Yeah. And you got to go to the fancy new UTI campus, not the old decrepit one, I think.
Oh yeah.
You were out in
probably right.
Avondale?
Yes.
Yeah. So, like a few
didn't know.
years after I graduated, they made announcements that they were building this like Taj Mahal of auto shops. And so I went when it was like in a lean-to. Okay, it wasn't really in a lean-to, but it felt like it at times. And then you went when like everything was inside and air conditioned and pretty and brand new.
I got the spoiled.
I'm the redheaded stepchild who got the like. That's all good. It's all good. So, what was the experience like for you going to UTI?
It was entertaining as heck. It was
Entertaining. Explain me that.
Oh my gosh! So I met so many really great people, and there was rumors started about me that I had 5 kids and I was divorced 3 times, and like,
Ooh, that's juicy.
Like, I know. I didn't realize that men gossip too until I got there. So
men gossip worse. Side note, y'all, anybody who thinks that men don't gossip, they are the worst.
Yeah, it's bad. It's so bad. I'm like, where are you guys coming up with this crap? I don't understand. Like, I've never even talked to any of you.
Amazing.
So I learned, I mean, UTI not only taught me to navigate the dealer, but they taught me how to navigate it socially. So when I was dealing with a lot of people, that were, some people really didn't like you. There was a lot of people that didn't like you there, and they just were not happy. And then I got hit on a ton.
Yeah.
Of course, every woman, I'm sure. You get to corner the market over there,
Right?
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I did make some really good friends and a lot of people that taught me a lot of things, besides the teachers.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point that you just made about like learning, and that's obviously not what UTI. It's not part of their agenda, right? UTI isn't intentionally teaching us how to navigate the social aspects of being in the industry, at least not in the way that it means for women, But what a valid point that it gives you this opportunity when you go to a tech school rather than going straight out into the career or out into the workforce, that you had this opportunity to really navigate working with men who didn't like you being there. And finding your allies and finding your support system before you get out into the workplace.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it made me learn not to really care about what people say. It's just, you just have to let that stuff right off your back. Like, you got to develop a thick skin. There's no getting around it.
Did it take a while to get to that point? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
It did. Did it for you?
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure that it has yet, actually.
Oh, yeah. No, I got my points. I always joke that the guys at work would be like, no crying in baseball. I would literally, there's one point at time where I was so upset that I wrapped myself around a drive shaft and cried, like under a truck that I was working on.
So that nobody could see you.
The one guy told me, he goes, you cry in the shower like a real man. He said that to me. I'm like, oh, okay.
My goodness.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm going to do. Nobody can see me, right?
It's so interesting. Yeah. And I hear you, because I was told kind of the same thing, right? Like, you don't cry in front of people. You don't let anybody see any of that. And there's so much truth to that, but it's so unfortunate that there's truth to that. Like, in my shop that I had when I had employees, we were mostly female, and I actually had a sign at one point in the office that said, yes, crying is allowed. Because
I love that.
I feel like there was this, like, I learned how to cope with my emotions the way society teaches men to cope with their emotions, because that was the environment that I was in, was like such a, not just male environment, but so like stereotypical masculine environment, that I learned that it was really only acceptable to show anger and happiness. Like, those were the only two emotions that were acceptable. And it was such a realization for me, like, oh my gosh, this is what society teaches men. And that's really sad too. Like, because men do cry in the shower. And wouldn't it be an amazing world if they were allowed to cry anywhere else?
I totally agree. And I mean, now, and I don't know if it's just the new generation coming in that are just like tired of the BS, but a lot of the younger guys that come in, they're very open.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen that before. When I started at the first dealer, I liked that I started at the dealer that I was before, because it toughened me up. It made me realize, like, oh, okay, this is the environment. But once now I'm like the elder of the shop, I'm like, they called me mom. I'm like, I'm not your mother. Stop it. I'm not that old. They come to me for, advice. A lot of sometimes other than just, hey, I got a technical question.
Right.
You can answer, So that's
cool.
been really good. Yeah. We got a really good crew right now.
That's awesome.
I don't know what it was about the pandemic, but it purged out a bunch of the bad people.
Interesting.
Yeah, it did.
That's a really interesting point. I'm not working on the field, out in the field right now, like as a tech on the line, so I haven't been able to see that. But I think it did the same thing as far as shops go. Like, the good shops were thriving, and the bad shops went out of business. At least a lot of them,
crazy.
Not all of them, but a lot did. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that, because when it happened with us, it was all of a sudden I was drowning in work and nothing was good enough. It was like I couldn't get stuff done fast enough.
Oh, wow.
There was so much more. We have, how in seasons, like I'm sure you saw it in BMW, where you had seasons of high sales.
Totally.
Summertime in Arizona is a killer on the car,
Yeah.
So you would have these seasons, and then it would drop down around the time that kids were going back to school.
Yes.
And tax time, right?
Yep.
Around the time of tax time. Well, we never saw that alleviate during the pandemic. It stayed consistently high. Oh, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I feel like the good shops adapted and figured it out. And like, the good shops were already doing things that prioritize their customer. And so continuing to prioritize their customer was not a challenge. And then the bad shops that didn't do things to take care of their people, like, they started to go away because they were really struggling.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting thing, but to see that affected the technicians as well, like losing technicians that were like, screw this, I'm done, I'm out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, what it did is, it's almost like it's a gatekeeping thing or a purging effect, where how the industry does that anyway to people. If you can't hang, you're out, kind of thing. But when it gets really hard, do you really want to do it? And that was where it's like, you have to really got it deep down in you to want to stay.
Interesting. Yeah. Are you seeing something similar with the increase of electric vehicles? Because I know we've talked a little bit about that, and I feel like there's a similar effect that's happening there, where the techs that don't want to learn it are kind of self-eliminating from the industry. Are you seeing that in the day-to-day?
Yeah. Yeah. We have had a couple that just don't want any part of it. I mean, the smart thing to do right now is to be still grounded in, gasoline and diesel, but also start to get grounded in EV, because that's the direction we're going.
Yeah.
It's just inevitable.
Yeah.
We can't avoid it. And I actually need to get my cert for it. My high voltage battery cert, I'm like behind.
Right.
So.
But you're already an electronic specialist. You specialize
Yeah.
in electrical. So I feel like that's going to be easy for you. And you're not afraid of it.
Sure. Yeah.
You're not afraid
I'm
of it.
not afraid of it. No,
Yeah.
it's just, it's literally the same thing, just different. I mean, I guess, I know that doesn't make any sense, but
Totally does.
like,
The same but different.
yeah, it really, I mean, we've already been dealing with hybrids for years now. So
Totally.
and it's
Totally.
so similar. Just going full electric is, all the designs that I'm seeing are kind of bizarre, and with new designs we see new failures. So, but I don't think that's ever going to change. I don't think we're not going to have to navigate some sort of issue. I feel like when I first started, I contacted Hotline probably twice in my career for like the first 5 years. And now it's like constant. It's like
interesting.
Just because of all of the electrical new technology coming out, I'm like, why isn't this programming? Why won't this take this programming?
Yeah.
And I see like our Ford changing on their side a lot. They're trying to navigate the environment just like we are. So
Sure.
we just have to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
It just has to be that way.
Even just the EVs, right? Because to your point, we've been so highly electric in our vehicles, even our fully, not even our hybrid engines, but like our ICE cars, our traditional gas engines, have so much electronics in them. And I feel like
Seriously.
it's becoming more and more a situation, and tell me if I'm wrong, where the dealerships have they have a handful, maybe, if they're lucky, of diagnostic techs, but the rest of their techs are generally the find and replacers, and then they're using the hotline, and they're using tech support as their resource for diagnosing these highly complex vehicles. Are you seeing that too?
A little bit. What the good thing with Ford right now is that for the most part, we as a team that we have right now in our shop, everybody is pretty much self-sufficient.
Nice.
And we rely on each other more of like, so we have our shop foreman. I don't know if this is how it was with you, but our shop foreman, I'm like, before I go to Ford, I go to him. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
And so, and then obviously Ford's really good about TSBs and all of that. Like most of the time you'll find your fix, but yeah.
TSB stands for Technical Service Bulletin, in case
sorry
anybody
about
doesn't know that. That's okay. Just throwing that out there.
You're so good at that. When I also start talking and people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm so good about that, because I just assume that everybody else around is the technician, so it's really
all good.
bad.
All good. All good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like we're gonna kind of start seeing kind of two different paths for technicians to go, and that like the electrical diagnostic like is gonna be kind of a more coveted position, and there's gonna be fewer of them, and there's gonna be traveling techs that go to the different shops, because it is so much harder. We're in such a deficit, right? We don't have enough technicians, period, right? So
Oh yeah, I never thought I'd see it. To be honest. Yeah.
it's crazy. It is so crazy. So it's going to be interesting watching how this all plays out over the next several years.
You're right. Yeah.
How do you feel like with the younger kids coming in at your shop? Are they more open to it than the older generation as far as EVs go and the electronics in general? Or is it kind of across the board, kind of some people are for it, some people aren't?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I have one really good friend. He's so good at what he does, and he was like one of those quick learners. Like within the first year, he was doing it.
Yeah.
It was like it's nothing for him, And he's still like, Tasha, I hate this.
Oh, interesting.
He still gets upset, but at the same time, it's not that he's not willing to learn it, or any of them are not willing to learn. They're just they are actually more open than I would
The
say
younger generation is.
Yeah, they are the ones that are successful that actually make it to the point in the shop.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there are a lot of
Interesting.
people as we have seen throughout our own careers. They come in and they're like, yeah, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
So we see that, but for the most part, yeah, they've been open.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing any more women coming in? Have you worked with any other women other than at Girl Gang and your extracurricular activities?
Yeah. I have. I trained one that went to
Nice.
Tesla.
Okay.
And yeah, she chose that route, which was pretty cool. I talked to her
Yeah.
once in a while. It's been a few years, but so she did that, which I think was really good for her. It was a really good fit for her.
Nice.
I have seen, unfortunately, a lot of failures, which is really sad.
Talk to me about that.
I think it doesn't have to do with being a female. I think it has to do with not actually being hardwired for it. That it's something that it's like we were saying, it's built into you to do this. So if you have to really, 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 really want it for it to be you to be successful at it. So,
And that's male or female?
male or female, it doesn't matter. Unfortunately, for the girls, I do think a lot of them feel like they don't have enough support. And for you, people like you and I mean, I did need some support, but it was just minimal. It was like we said earlier, just like navigating that, like through UTI and stuff, navigating that whole social thing. So
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I think you're right. I think a lot of the challenges that the industry faces are towards both genders for sure. Like it's an issue on like both men and women are experiencing some similar things. I think women kind of have some additional layers of stuff
Yeah,
that
you're
they
right.
have
Yeah.
to deal with than the men do. But yeah, I mean it's male or female, and I've encountered plenty of male apprentices that I had at my shop that like just didn't know which end of the screwdriver to hold, right? And it's you do kind of have to have an instinct for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, right, I've seen the industry like kind of beat the love out of people for
Oh,
the work, right? Like they
for
beat them
real.
down and they lose the love.
Oh yeah. There was a time we went through where it was just like, I don't know what happened, but the dynamic of our shop, I've been at the dealer I'm at for like almost 6 years. And so there was this time where I don't know if it was like, there was this mixture of service advisors and they were cutthroat. I mean, and it was like, basically it took me to the fork in the road where it was bringing up all the bad like emotions that I have, the bad parts of me that I felt that I was suppressing. And
Oh,
I was like,
interesting.
I had to go down one path or another. Do I choose to be like the rudest person back to you and, treat you like crap, or do I take the high road? And that actually molded me to choose the high road, So it was hard. It was so hard because it's like people just poke and poke, and it's like we're submerged in a shop full of psychopaths, that were there,
Sounds awful.
yeah. It was just like, what technician can I manipulate to get my stuff done ahead of this guy? And it wasn't like,
Wow.
I remember putting my foot down. And I was like, I'm sorry, I've diagnosed this and this and this and this and this car before yours. I'm not even going to get to yours for like 3 days.
Yeah.
So you don't have a choice. And then they'd try to escalate it and nothing would get done. And I just learned that way, like, just let it go to the manager.
How did you get yourself to that point? Because I know I think I talked to you a little bit here and there when you were kind of in the midst of like real frustration with the dealership and real like I'm done. I feel like giving up. Like I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to fight these fights anymore. And you were feeling pretty beat down, and I get it. Like I totally understand how that goes. I've been there. And I think pretty much any woman working in a male dominated field has been there as well. And what you said about like, you either have to choose to take the higher road or you treat them the same way that they're treating you. And it's so easy to go that way. Right. And so many people do. That's why the culture of the dealerships and independent shops is kind of perpetuated over and over and over again. Because everybody just kind of slides into just doing the same thing. So how did you How did you get over that hump, and how did you find that place, that motivation, that what was it that allowed you to get to that place where you're like, I can do this differently and I can stick with it and find my own path and be successful?
It was a fact. Well, I prayed a lot. That was the beginning of that. But it was a fact that I knew who I was. I was not going to step down or stand down just because somebody wanted to intimidate or bully me. And I think that applies to any part of life, that you could face these parts where people are just horrible and horrible and horrible to you. And it had the way that I navigated it was I realized that these are just human beings. They're just trying to, they're trying to make a living just like I am. They're just taking the wrong path to doing so, and they don't know. I really feel that way. I feel like they just don't know, or sometimes they're just evil people and they they want to hurt you, and they the only person that can give them that power is you. So if you let it affect you, um, if you let it cause you to have bitterness, like bitterness root in your heart, that is the worst thing. It's as if they can affect you for a longer term than what they're doing just at this moment. And so understanding, for me, it was understanding the dynamics of the human heart and how we operate. And I don't have to give in to your BS. I don't have to do that. I can just say, hey, to my boss, so they're complaining about this. What do you want me to do? And just hand it into his hands, and he would just deal with it. So I'm like, I'm just doing my best. As long as you do your best and you are a person of integrity, they can really find no fault in you, and what are they going to do? Make me work faster? I'm not, So that was kind of, that's how I navigated that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love everything about what you just said. That is so fantastic. And
Thank you.
I know it's also probably easier to say than to do, right? Like
Yeah.
It's a practice.
I was angry. Yeah. I think I showed up at your shop a few times, like, oh, I cried under one of the cars when we were working on it. And you're like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm just really mad.
It's okay. Crying is allowed in auto repair.
Thank God. Yeah. I was like, I kept feeling, I was like, Bogi is so gracious right now. She must really understand what's going on. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Been there, done that. Crying is allowed.
Yeah.
I was so glad that I heard that you persevered and kind of stuck with it and found your own way to kind of keep going with it, because it would be such a loss to the industry to lose you.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice.
Oh gosh,
I appreciate that.
100%. Do you feel like things are changing in the industry? Do you feel like with this new generation of kids coming up and the younger techs that there's hope?
Yes. Oh yeah. I seen so much humility out of the guys that I work with. And I think that's the key. And that's something I was going to say. I was going to mention that humility is the key to success, I think, in this industry. Is part of it. You can't come in and out of UTI and be like, I know what I'm talking about. You'll never, everybody can see through your BS. Mm-hmm. So you prove it by the first car you work on and fail at. So, that's really it. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Interesting. That's good to hear. I want to be hopeful. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I am.
I know. Yeah.
If you could talk to, like, I know there is no such thing, right? Like the they that there is no they that's controlling everything. But if there was somebody in charge of the automotive industry as a whole and the mechanical repair and the dealerships and all of that, and you could tell them to change something, anything about the industry, whether it's how we get into it, whether it's what it looks like day to day, if you could have them wave a magic wand and something would change within the industry, what do you think are the things that need to change? What needs to be different?
Labor times are a huge deal. I don't know when you left the industry, but they started chopping us like super hard.
Yeah.
And then I've seen and everybody's afraid to speak up about it, but I've seen the several different, not just Ford, but several different manufacturers go around and be like, what can we do different? And they want to get these incentive programs. It's like, stop cutting labor times. Appreciate the techs that you're training. Like, when they actually do good, reward them. I'm not saying that we're entitled to it. It's just that it's hard. it gets harder and harder. The job gets harder, and it gets harder to make the money. And I've seen it around me. Unfortunately, it leads to dishonesty in people because they are like, I just am trying to survive. And so it's something that I don't know why they're not getting it, and they may be getting it and they just don't want to budge in that area.
Yeah.
But
yeah, God, that's so important. I think that's so huge. At the end of the day, like automotive technicians, for those who don't know, and I don't know if you even know these stats, Tausha, but I was doing a little research around it, and the average auto mechanic across the country, average auto mechanic is making about $45,000 to $50,000 a year.
yeah.
And yet the average auto mechanic after 5 years in the industry has anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000 worth of tools.
Yes.
So there is a huge problem in and of itself. But then if you look at like how much the average elevator technician makes, $60,000 a year. Average airplane mechanic is over $100,000 a year. Helicopter technicians are $160,000 a year, right? So auto mechanics are horribly, I think, underpaid, generally speaking. And then we wonder why we don't have any. It's a hard job. You have to have this, like you've been talking about, you have to have this inherent skill and ability to know how to use tools and know how to think about puzzles. And now you're adding all of these electronics and all of the diagnostics, and it's getting more and more complicated every year to work on cars. And yet the pay has not gone up at all, really, or very minimally over the last several years or decades even.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've had where we've seen labor times literally cut in half sometimes. And it just doesn't make any sense. They're like, well, you guys are, what the excuse is that you guys are using electric tools. Huh? We've been doing that the whole time. What are you talking about? You know, it's really frustrating. It's almost insulting to the intelligence of the mechanic.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
Are you guys paid on the flat rate system still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I like to a point. I know you and I discussed flat rate. It sucks sometimes. You know?
Yeah, there's pros and cons to it. There's pros and cons for sure.
But you have the opportunity to make more if you need to, if you're working hard enough, I guess.
Right.
Or if you just get the lucky 10.5, evaporator core in a 350, right. That takes like 3 hours. You know?
When I was at the dealership, I remember the excuse they used for cutting labor times, because they were doing that back then too. But their reasoning was, well, that car has been out long enough that you guys know how to do it faster. And it's like, but that's the point of the flat rate system, is that once I learn how to do it faster, I can make more money on it.
Exactly. It's like a way for you to actually get better, because it's almost giving yourself a promotion a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, because the first time you do it, it's going to take you a long time. Like, that's the nature of the beast. But then once I get good at it, I should at that point then be able to capitalize on it. Like, the joke about like a master locksmith versus a brand new locksmith, right? The brand new locksmith takes 3 hours to do it. The master locksmith takes 15 minutes to do it. The customer says, why should I pay you so much money when it only took you 15 minutes? Like, well, you're paying for my 30 years of experience, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's how
and the fact that I know the tricks.
Exactly. That's how I justify continuing to charge diagnosis, because I know that I've gone back and forth in my head about it, but I'm like, you know what? This is 10 years, 11 years, 12 years of experience that I'm throwing at your car. Yeah. And then I get the bad attitude of, well, do you want to fix it yourself? Like,
oh, you mean you like feel so that bad about the customer?
Yeah, well, because they complain, I don't want to pay for that. I'm like, okay, then fix it yourself.
Yeah.
I mean,
you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a bad attitude I need to purge out of my life.
I don't know that is a bad attitude. I think that's realistic. Like, it's the choice is yours, right? Like, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, whichever, right? The choice is yours. You don't have to pay for diagnosis. I'm also not going to do the diagnosis for free. So either you pay for it or I don't work on it.
Right. Exactly. That's just
your choice, my choice.
Like, I gotta feed my kid too,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. All right. So labor times
Sorry.
for sure. No, that was I love going down rabbit holes. Labor time is a huge one. Anything else that you would change? Things that you think are like real thorns in the side of the industry, either gender related, not gender related, just in general. What do you think are our biggest challenges we're facing?
Um, I would say, well, I don't know if it's biggest challenges. It's when I think of it, it's like always like individual to me. So,
That's
you
okay.
know, when it got, it's got to do with warranty, and then I get a call back, and they're like, we tested that part, and it's good, and I'm like, then how come it didn't work when it came in, and it works now? Just doesn't make any sense, like that kind of stuff, or they can just make this executive decision to charge us back. It seems like unfair. There's not openness in
Oh.
that side of it. Uh, and I have had that, like, where I think what it is, what we're seeing it in Arizona probably more than anywhere, because we have the heat and we don't have the Ford proving grounds or any proving grounds really out here except for Nissan that I know. So they need to they need to bring back that testing to our area, because they used to do like I'm sure you know this, but they've used to do extensive testing in Arizona,
Yes.
and they don't anymore. So now we're getting a lot more failures, and then they want to penalize us for it. And
Interesting.
uh-huh.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point. Because temperature related things are regional differences, right? Like
Yes.
what I repaired often when I was working at a dealership in New York
Hmm.
was so different than what I repaired working on in Arizona.
Wow.
Right, like we did all the suspension. It was all of the suspension work, right? But yeah, it's
Yeah.
110 degrees today,
Yeah.
right? So Arizona deals with heat. In New York, we dealt with potholes, right? So
Yeah.
in New York, it was all the suspension stuff, and in Arizona, it was all the heat stuff, everything rubber, everything
Oh
battery
yeah.
related, anything plastic just dies,
Disintegrates. Yeah.
disintegrates. Yes, we had funny sidetrack story was we had with BMW, because they don't have proving grounds in Arizona either, right? They don't
Hmm.
test their stuff in nobody tests their stuff in Arizona heat, like they just
Hmm.
don't, right? And so we were getting in trouble at the dealership for replacing too many window regulators.
That's the problem we're having right now.
Oh my goodness.
Like brand new ones.
Yeah,
It's
because they
insane.
fail. They just
Hmm.
fail in the heat. And somebody
Yeah.
from Germany came out to our dealership and they were like, "You're doing too many warranty window regulators. You guys must be scamming the system. Your technicians must be lying," right? The assumption is that the techs are bad and are lying and are cheating the system versus
Hmm.
any other assumption, which is a gripe of mine as well, right? Like the first assumption is that your techs are lying.
Yeah. I know.
But so
Yes, I agree with that.
right,
Yeah. We
but
get
they
blamed
came out
immediately.
immediately. It must be the
Hmm.
tech's fault, right?
Hmm.
They came out and they put a thermometer inside the door panel and then put the door panel back on and put the car out in the parking lot for half a day. Went back out, pulled the door panel out, checked the temperature gauge, and I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was some like ridiculously high number. It was like over 200 degrees, like inside the door.
Whoa, I
Because
guess I didn't expect that high. That's
yeah, because at
crazy.
first they're like our window regulators are rated to 130 or 160 degrees or whatever, and we're like, yeah, it's gonna get hotter than that in Arizona. So they
Yeah, you
saw
apparently
their
haven't lived
temperature.
here.
Totally. They saw the temperature and they were like, as you were, keep doing what you were doing, all good.
That's so funny to me. Oh my
But
gosh.
it's so you're getting back
Yeah.
charged on warranty items that they've determined are not.
Yeah. They randomly select stuff, so that's the way we work.
Ooh,
And
that's
I
interesting.
yeah, I mean, I get why they do it, because yeah, there are some really bad people out there that don't, they're just shotgunning parts, and you're not supposed to do that. So I get it, but
Sure.
yeah, I just remember one particular time I'm like, what? Are you kidding? Like this is
Yeah.
okay, well, the customer's happy, I don't care.
Yeah.
What else am I supposed to
And
do,
then
you
you
know?
lose hours. You're losing pay
Mhm.
when that happens.
Yeah, I lose
Right.
pay. Yeah. It's really unfortunate. Thank God it doesn't happen all the time, but
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think the immediate blaming of the technician without actually investigating anything is the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem. So that as far as like anything else, I don't know. I don't I think it's because we've been so submerged. I would say what I say tell my husband, we've been so submerged in the darkness of it that we don't know it could be better, you know? So,
Ooh, yeah, let's let that one sink in for a hot second because it's so true. It's
yeah.
so true that we get, fish and water doesn't know they're wet, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's all that we know when we're working
Yeah.
in the dealership world. And so many folks know. I think a lot of what stands in the way of change and growth within the industry is this idea of like, well, this is the way it's always been done.
I've even
Or
heard that said out loud.
yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Or like, I
Yeah.
had to learn the hard way, so why should I teach anybody else how to do it? Like a
Yeah.
lack of desire to share skills and share knowledge. And it's this like stuck in the it's always been this way kind of
Yes.
mindset.
Yeah. And what I think is that a successful shop will have a team. Even though we're all the individual flat rate people, we
Yeah.
need to lean on each other because it's getting harder, and there's just no getting around that. You know,
Yeah.
it's getting harder. We're trying to navigate stuff that maybe this guy has seen before, but I haven't. You know,
Yeah.
everything's new constantly, and so. But yeah, I mean, we have a great team right now that they've
So,
all yeah.
how do people nurture that? Like, how is if there's a shop owner listening or dealer manager or whatever, if they're listening, how do you manage and how do you create that kind of team environment? Are you guys paid collectively, or is it just they've created a culture where you guys are encouraged to work together? Like, how does that work, and how do we perpetuate that?
Yeah, I think I have a really good manager. I have a really good GM right now. Like we've got really good guys that are just, they kind of let the shop run itself. And I mean, for the most part, until they have to step in if there's like some hot, like customer on fire up front or something, you know, like I'm burning alive. Like,
Right.
you know,
Something crazy is happening. We
I
need you
need my
now. Yeah.
sync fixed now. My Bluetooth doesn't work. You know, it's just like whatever. But sorry.
I mean, those are real. That's real.
That's real stuff, yeah. But I think from what my perspective, and I may totally be wrong about this, but what's happened in my particular environment and setting, we've had guys that actually have come in that have been hired in, and they kind of sort of put themselves in the position of a leader, but they want best for everybody. And so they came in with a teamwork mindset, and and there doesn't seem to be like any animosity between technicians at all. In fact, we don't want to see each other drown, you know? So
So it's really
I
the
don't,
people, not so much the system. Like it wasn't set up to create that. You just have the right people in play.
I think so. And I think I watched over time, but I think my boss has learned who to hire. I think and I don't know if I've seen that change in him or what, but he's actually really good at finding good people, you know? So I don't know. I mean,
Like
he's
hiring
learned,
more for personality.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's important to have the skill, obviously.
Sure.
Like we can't have a Hackosaurus Rex coming in,
Right.
just
A
like messing it up.
Hackosaurus Rex. I think we need to get T-shirts that say that. That is amazing. I've not ever heard that before.
That was funny. I heard that for the first time at the dealer I'm at now, but the guy worked at another I was working at Sanderson. He worked at the Lincoln Sanderson, and he started saying that, and then somebody said it at the Sanderson I was at, and then when I moved here, he's like Hackosaurus Rex. I was like, whoa, what is this nonsense? He goes, oh, I know this guy. Like,
Oh, how funny.
I
That's
mean,
a great
he
term.
does like the T-Rex crap.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
whatever. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I love it. That's great. Sorry, I sidetracked you in your comment. So,
No.
we can have a bunch of Hackosaurus Rexes,
Yeah.
but yeah, once you've kind of like established a baseline of skill and ability, like I always say I can teach you how to fix a car within reason if you have the ability to, hold the right end of the screwdriver. I can teach you how to fix a car. I
Right.
can't teach you how to care.
Yes.
And I can't teach you how to get along with others. Like that has to be like you have to have that kind of brain, and it's
Oh
good to
yeah.
see that there's more of that being looked at in the hiring process and that you're seeing the
Yeah.
effects of that.
Yeah, I do believe so. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, that's something we just I never really thought about when
Yeah.
I was thinking I'm going to be in this corner. I'm going to have my own bay, and I'm not going to have to talk to anybody. No, that is not the
Yeah.
case at all. It was the
No.
opposite. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Your most valuable tool is your phone book, right? They're like the people who you know that you can reach out to because we can't know everything. We just
no.
can't. It's
Anybody that
impossible.
anybody that pretends that they do are lying. And they always try to crap on you. Well, you should know this. You're the mechanic. I'm like, okay.
Right.
Well, thanks. I don't know what's off the top of my head right now. I just like download the entirety of the workshop manual into my mind. It just doesn't work like that.
Wouldn't it be nice if it did work like
I
that? Oh
know.
my goodness.
I know. It'd be walking hotline contacts.
But it's true. You can't know everything. And yes, louder for the people in the back. Anybody who's saying that they do or making fun of
Yes.
you for not knowing something,
Yeah.
right? They're lying.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, the thing I think is so successful about Ford is that they teach you how to figure out. They teach you how to find the information. And
Yeah.
I'm sure I feel like BMW did a little bit too because I went through that program.
Yeah. I will say that for anybody who's out there, like if you're looking to go into this as a career path and you're thinking about going to Universal Technical Institute or
Hmm.
any other schools that have the Ford program, even if you don't want to go work for Ford, take the Ford program. Because I felt like Ford did a phenomenal job of teaching electronics
Oh
and the
yeah.
diagnostic process. And even though I never went to work for Ford, I was so grateful that I went through that program because I learned so much. And they really do, I feel like I hate working on Fords. I'm not gonna lie.
Me
I hate
too. No, I'm just
working on
kidding.
them.
I'm
I
just
mean,
kidding.
there are so many times where I'm like, seriously, Ford, like, what were you thinking? And I know some Ford engineers, so I'm looking at you guys. But but from a diagnostic standpoint, like
Yeah, they're
they really
great.
have created some wonderful
Hmm.
tools for the techs to find the flow in the process, the diagnostic tree, so to speak.
Yeah, oh for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that that's one of the strongest suits, and I I think that's what caused me. When I know we mentioned the charity thing a little bit, but it's what caused me.
Yeah,
I
we
completely
have to
forgot
talk about.
about that.
I know, I did
Yeah.
too. And oh my God, so I have to ask permission really quickly and then we're going to go into that.
Okay.
We are almost at our hour is almost up.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask your permission, humbly, if we may go over a little bit, because I totally want to talk about the charity stuff. I know that's so important to you, and
Yeah.
it's something we're both passionate about. So are you okay with us going over a few minutes?
Yeah. For
Okay,
sure.
good.
For
Okay,
sure. Yeah.
good, folks. I
Yeah.
hope you all stick around for this as well. So, so go on. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. It was like so. So I think what God blessed me with was actually having the opportunity with Ford and the fact that they are so good at like helping you figure out how to diagnose. It's not that you're going to know the diagnosis right away. Like they help you to. They're like, here's the resources. Find the resources.
Yeah.
They really provide that, and so it made me like I fixed a transmission on a Dodge Durango just out of understanding. Okay, I don't have the information now, but I'll get it. You know, um, and and then I mean, and it was crazy because the truck was failing. It needed to pass emissions, and I don't know how I pulled this out off the internet somehow, but I figured out that certain codes, like I went through and pressure tested, all of the clutches and all of that in my garage.
Oh wow.
Never thought in my like wildest dreams I'd be able to do that. Ended up condemning the solenoid pack.
Oh wow.
And I found one. Somebody just gave me one, and it was a charity thing, and I
That's
fixed it,
awesome.
and then she drove away, and it was like, what? How? And I was blown away by that, and it was one of those things that was actually through the charity stuff that I got better at my own personal job, because I learned how to navigate other cars that don't share the same sort of design, obviously.
Ooh, yeah, that touches
Yeah.
on such a huge topic too. It's like that moment when you go from working just on one manufacturer to working on other things. It gives you the opportunity to like two things. One, like totally expand your knowledge base, right? You're
Yes.
like now doing totally different things, but you're also really going back to understanding the basics, and you're able to reflect on like how well do you understand the basics? How well
Yeah.
do you understand the diagnostic process? Because you have to rely on that so much, and it can either be really horrifying or really affirming to techs when they make that transition. So really awesome to hear that it was an affirming thing for you.
Yeah. There was times where it wasn't, and I think you have to walk through those, like, I don't know what I'm doing, you know.
Yes.
to really get to the point where you do know what you're doing. You know?
Yeah.
And you have to allow suffering to happen in your life
in
order to get better. It's the only way, actually.
Ooh, I love that. You have to allow suffering in your life in order to get better.
You do.
That's so powerful.
It produces like, you know, perseverance in us, you know. So it's valuable. I know it sucks sometimes. I feel like I've been going through that a lot lately, but yeah.
But keeping that perspective helps get through the dark times, I feel like, too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a really powerful statement.
Yeah. But yeah, the charity, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Some heavy bombs on you.
No, it's so good because it's that, like, I imagine that meme of, like, you know, the comfort zone, and then, like, out here is, like, where magic happens, right? Like, you have to get uncomfortable to get to the good stuff, but God, is it uncomfortable?
And for, like, an extended period of time where you, like, want to run from it, you know?
Yes.
You want to run from it. But, you know, if you run, you're not going to get anywhere. It's just going to set you back. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I really became a good technician once I started working on all makes and models and had to really push myself. Like, I was a good tech, but I wasn't a great tech. Then I started working on things on my own and had to really understand how stuff worked so that I could figure out how Dodge did it differently than Chevy did it, than Hyundai did it, than what, right? Like, you really have to get back to basics. And it was through that process that I feel like I actually became a really good technician.
That's amazing. Yeah. I can see that for sure. And it's almost like starting over. You know how they tell you that first year is the worst? It really is. Like, every time I learn a new thing at my work, I'm like, oh, here we go again. No, I don't want to do this anymore.
I'm tired of learning.
I know. But the truth is, it'll never stop.
It'll never stop.
It will never stop. Yeah.
Right. The day you stop learning is the day you start dying. All right. So let's talk about charity. Let's talk about this charity thing. So what does this mean to you? You said that charity is really what drove you to get into the industry to begin with. Talk to me about that and what that means to you.
Well, I saw a lot of need for, you know, specifically at the church I was at. We had actually a small group of technicians that were just from, like, Honda, and, you know, but it was like we all had this common goal to let's help people that can't afford it, that they're just trying to live day by day, paycheck to paycheck, you know, and so what we did was we created this group thing, and if, say, they would send out a mass text and say, hey, can any of you look at this car for such and such? And I made a lot of good friends that way because, you know, when you help people, they are really appreciative, and, you know, they have love for you and care for you. And what ended up happening was, one by one, because of life, and I was the only one left doing it, and so the weight of it became too much, and so I had to step back. And I haven't been doing it for a while, but I did give a car away. Oh, wow. I put a transmission in I think I told you about that one, but I put a transmission into Escape and gave it to a friend. Yeah. I knew exactly what was wrong with it. I bought the car. I bought this Escape for like $700. It's this little cute little SUV, and then put a transmission in it, and then just gave it away. And it was, I mean, probably one of the most satisfying and fulfilling things I've done in a while. For sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much. It is such a beautiful thing, and I think it's such a valuable, like, kind of reflection on no matter who you are or what your skill set is or where your strengths are, like, there is always a way that you can bring value to other people.
Absolutely.
And being a mechanic and having a trade that people rely on is such a beautiful way to be able to help people.
For sure. Yeah.
I love that you're doing that. I love that you've done that. I love that you're continuing to do it. And I know that drives you. And we have talked about it. And I will take this opportunity to do a little teaser We have not firmed up details yet, so I can't give details, but I can say stay tuned, everybody who is listening and who hears this. We have a build that may be coming up very soon here, that is going to be along those lines. So I'm gonna be tapping you for that, Tasha, and I
Yeah.
want you to work with me on it,
would love
because
to.
we want to do exactly that, and bring the skills that we have that we can use to help others.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, isn't that why we do all this in the first place? It's like we build up the skill, but we do something for somebody that can't help themselves. So I think that's and not taking advantage either, be that trusted person that somebody can rely on,
Yeah,
somebody of
absolutely.
integrity.
I think the industry, technicians within the industry forget that a lot, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you probably hear this often as well, as the like, oh, this stupid customer, that stupid customer, blah blah blah. Like, you know, or making fun of customers for not knowing things. Like, how did they
Oh,
not
yeah.
know this about this car? I'm like, well, because they're not a technician, and
Yeah.
that's our job. Like, our job is to be their hero, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They didn't go through like military boot camp of, of UTI and like, here,
Right.
let's pound all this, you want to learn about automatic transmissions? Here we go.
Right, right. We shouldn't expect them to be good at what we're good at, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and we're there to be their hero, to be the person that saves the day, and just like we rely on other people when it's something that we don't know, right? But I love that is so core to who you are,
Well, thank you.
and
It's very nice.
you're sharing that. What I love the most about it, like you're who you are, your beingness, and your like your compassion and your empathy and your care for other people is, and the fact that you have found the confidence within yourself to own that and not let the industry or the people around you suck that out of you. You're instead infusing that in the people around you, and it's affecting and changing your work environment for the better and the people around you for the better. And I love that.
I didn't even realize that, I guess. My boss said that the other day. You have no idea how much you're respected. Well, I guess I never saw that, but so I appreciate you saying that very much.
Oh,
It's very
absolutely.
kind.
The fact that they all refer to you as mom is not an insult.
I'm like, I don't want to raise any of you. I'm done raising. Like, I'm almost done raising I'm not. Never going to be done raising them, but yeah.
Right, right. No, but you are having an impact, and that's a beautiful thing. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
I know it's not always easy, but you're an inspiration, and you inspire many. So
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that, Bogey.
absolutely. All right, I've taken up enough of your time. We are well past our hour. I want to be respectful of you. I know you've got your family to get back to. I want to respect the time of all of these fine folks at home. So I want to thank you again for being willing to come on here, sharing your thoughts, sharing your experiences. I have one final question that I have to ask.
Yes.
Have to ask. If you could talk to the younger you, a little baby Tasha, or another little girl like
You're gonna make me
you,
cry.
maybe. I mean, not on purpose, but hey, if you could talk to younger you or another little girl like you, what are your words of advice for her?
Oh man, sorry.
That's okay. Crying is allowed.
I would say, I mean, I know I'm going to get into religion, but I would say trust
okay.
God and what He has to say about you and your identity. That it's going to work out. As hard as it seems and as tumultuous as life has been, there's always hope. So, sorry.
It's okay.
A little bit emotional.
That's okay.
Yeah, that is exactly, yeah. It's crazy that you asked me that because I've been thinking about that lately. So.
I love it. Yeah, deep breaths. And
Yeah.
yes, it is so easy to say. It is so much harder to do, to remember exactly those words, like have hope, have faith, know that things are going to work out even if you don't see it in the moment.
Yeah.
Your life has been continuous proof that things do work out.
Yeah.
for whatever reason, right? If whether you're religious, whether you're not religious, whatever, if it's you that caused that, if it's whatever it is that you believe in that caused that, but things do work out.
Hmm.
And I like to believe that who you are had a really big part in helping to continue make your life what it is. And I'm just so grateful that you are still around and sharing your story and are still a part of this industry. So thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
All right. I am going to truly let you go for the evening now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It was so much fun talking to you, and you need to get your butt down to the shop because we need to
Yeah.
wrench on some stuff together. Because looking through
Yeah.
those old pictures and seeing how much fun we had working together, it made me a little teary eyed. I was like, I miss her. We need to get you out to the shop. So
Heck yeah. Yeah, that'll happen for sure.
awesome.
For sure.
All right. Well, have a fantastic rest of your evening. And folks
you too.
at home, thank you guys all so much for coming and hanging out and spending this hour with us and getting to know Tausha. Definitely go check her out on the social medias. I've got her linked in the description below this video. So make sure you go check her out, throw her some love and support, and continue watching her journey, and send her all sorts of love and well wishes, as well as always with all of our guests. And if you're ever needing a little dose of inspiration, you can always go back and look at past videos. This is our 150th episode. Oh my gosh, there's 150 women that I have had the amazing pleasure of getting to sit down and talk to and get to hear their stories and their journeys and their experiences. So no matter what technical trades you are in or thinking about going into, there is an interview out there for you to meet another woman doing similar stuff and to hear her journey and experiences. Always great for a little bit of inspiration and just knowing that you're not alone. So you can find new episodes of the With Her Two Hands podcast every Wednesday right here on YouTube and on Facebook live, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And then, of course, every Monday we release a past archived episode from this series former life as Trades Lady Happy Hour. So lots of other episodes that are still being released. So every Monday, every Wednesday, 2 times you get to meet cool women in the trades. And then, of course, anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can also listen to this in audio form. So thank you guys so much for tuning in and spending part of your week with me and meeting our guests this week. Big thank you to our sponsor for this episode, Drive Time, for all of their support of women in the trades. And have yourselves a fantastic evening. Until next time, be good to yourselves, be good to one another. Bye, guys.